This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. Notice of this meeting was included in a notice sent to the Record and the Star Ledger and advertised in said newspapers on January 17, 2020, posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and has remained continuously posted as the required notices under the statute. A copy of this notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. Please take notice that in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6 et seq., and in consideration of Executive Order Number 103, issued by Governor Murphy on March 9, 2020, declaring a state of emergency and a public health emergency in the state of New Jersey, the City of Englewood does hereby notify the public that to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens while ensuring the continued functioning of government, the City Council workshop meeting scheduled for September 1st, 2020 at the Englewood Municipal Court, 73 South Rembrandt Street, Englewood, New Jersey, 07631, will be held telephonically and virtually via Zoom only. Members of the public who wish to participate in the meeting may do so by calling or clicking on the link below at 7:30 p.m. Link is on our website, or by dialing 929-205-6099. The meeting ID for this meeting is 880-9292. 2683, and the passcode is 626778. Individuals calling into this number will be able to fully participate in the meeting, including providing public comment. A non-public dial-in number, a breakout room will be used for a closed session if required. Proper notice having been given, the municipal clerk is directed to include the statement in the minutes of this meeting.
Will the city clerk please do the roll call?
Councilwoman Glenn.
Here.
Councilman Hamer.
Here.
Council President Cobb.
Here.
I'm going to check one last time to see if somebody ended up in the attendees column by mistake. No. Okay. All right. Absent are Councilman Michael Cohen, Councilwoman Rosenberg. Also present are Mayor Michael Wiles, City Attorney Bill Bailey, and for interim City Manager Greg Fehrenbach.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Cohen's calling me right now. Should I pick up?
You can, but we're gonna move to the business at order here.
Okay. You'll excuse me, I'll just mute myself.
Okay, mute yourself. I'm gonna ask for a motion in a second to approve bills and claims, resolution 181, and the number and amount of $3,564,448.37. I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Questions?
Just one question. It's a rather large amount. Most of the money is for payment of taxes to the county, I believe. If that's correct, I just wanted Mr. Kaufman to speak to that.
Yes. You're talking about the prepaid, the $2,950,000?
Correct.
Yeah, that's our quarterly tax payment that we make to the county.
Okay. That's it.
That's it, Mr. Hamer?
That's all.
Anybody else have any questions? I have a few. Ms. Glenn, do you have any right now? No? Yes?
I do not.
Okay. So I'll just take up the rest of the time, I guess. So, Mr. Kaufman, on page 1 of 4, $39,204.50. I know it says lease payment. Is this vehicle? Is this one vehicle we paying this much money for?
3 vehicles.
It's 3 vehicles?
Yes.
And is this lease payment done, or how much more?
No, this is the first payment.
First payment? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we got 3 new vehicles that we're paying on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Next question is on page 2 of 4. Mr. Volsey, this will be him. $9,000 renewable. It says stormwater, but it says renewable stormwater. Mr. Volsey.
Actually, I'm trying to figure out what this one is for. Not sure exactly what this one is. Now, we do have several things that the state treasurer does ask for regarding stormwater discharge and sanitary. I'm not sure exactly which specific one this one is for. They're
Okay.
all about the same number. So
When you get a chance, can you get that information to us?
absolutely.
Read over to us, please. This is another one for you as well, Mr. Volsi. On
If I could speak for 1 second, sorry. On the other thing, the stormwater, the description says, maybe Franz, you know more about it. Stormwater discharge general permit authorization renewal. Annual fee.
That would be through the DEP. They do charge us annually for the stormwater intake, especially much like the sanitary system. As we get charged for a little ferry to take on our sewage flow, we do get charged by the DEP every year for permit for stormwater.
And that's a standard.
And that's every municipality gets that. We've been getting a lot of water, and I guess these charges are they're typically in the 7,500 range. So 9,000 is a little
high.
up there, and I'm not sure if that has to do with the rains we've been getting.
Well, okay. If you could look into that, why 9,000
Absolutely.
and 7,500, just so we just know what this is going on.
Will do.
On page 3 or 4, Mr. Volsi, $15,960. The Knickerbocker sanitary,
Yes.
sanitary. When is that going to be? Is that project finished?
It's actually about 85% completed.
Mhm.
We have some minor sort of details that we have to work out. A couple have to do with some of the residents getting their yards together,
Okay.
and some of the final cleanup that has to be done there. The only main thing that has left as far as the project is concerned is providing the fencing. But
Mhm.
that's something we're gonna do absolutely last once the grading's completed, et cetera. Then we'll put the fence up.
Mr. Volsi, is that the lady at 263? Is she part of that?
Yes, she is.
Okay. All right. Good. On 3 or 4, 25,116. That's Mr. Kaufman. The car video system.
Dash cams for the
Yeah.
cars.
These are cars so that's for those 3 cars that we got?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And Mr. Kaufman, I guess you could speak to this one. It's that one of one, 18,059.81, and that insurance claim for the fire truck.
Yeah, that's the same one as the last meeting.
Yeah.
They have to add.
Let me finish, then you can answer. Just because I have, before I forget my thought. This was an accident, right?
I believe so, yes.
Do you believe so, or you're not sure?
It's insurance, so it had to be.
So we hit something?
I'll find out exactly from the fire department.
Okay. And if there's a report that says we hit something, we would like to have that report.
Okay.
Because I mean, I think that this thing keeps popping up and it's an insurance thing, so we know what we're doing. All right.
It was the same one as the last meeting. They just had to add a little bit more to it. And the way Edmonds worked, they had to like redo we couldn't backdate it.
Yep.
So it just happened to be on this bill list also.
Okay. All right. I'm finished. Yancy, you could do the roll call, please. And Mr. Cohen has joined this, I see.
Councilman Cohen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Glenn?
Yes.
Councilman Hamer?
Yes.
Council President Com?
Yes. Next, we have an ordinance for public hearing and second reading. Consideration will now be given to ordinance 20-03. Will the clerk please read the ordinance by title?
An ordinance amending Chapter 286 Noise to incorporate the New Jersey Environmental Protection Department Model Noise Ordinance.
I declare that the public hearing on this ordinance is now open. If there is anyone who desires to be heard or to ask questions concerning this ordinance, he or she will be heard at this time. Please come forward. As you know, we can't come forward, but please raise your hand and give your name and your address for the record. So give them an instructions. Can you give them instructions raising their hand?
That's the same thing at the bottom of the screen. I think there's a raise hand function. New for me, or under Q&A. There you go. We're starting with the questions. Okay. So everyone, if you haven't noticed, we are under a new Zoom system. We're using the webinar system. So everyone from the public is classified as an attendee. When I call on you, I will change you to allowed to talk. So you will be seen on screen. Once you're done with your questions, you will go back to just muted. So the first one is, I believe, Reverend Harper. I'm going to click allowed to talk. The system's a little slow, so just if you can, everybody give me a second sometimes.
She looks like she came up on mute too as well.
Yeah, Reverend Harper, you're going to need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. On this noise ordinance, I need to know, does that include loud traffic or loud cars going up and down the streets? Does that include that? Let me explain the reason why I ask. Every night, and I'm sure everybody adjacent to Route 4 can hear it. Every night, about 11:30, 12 o'clock, there is this motor vehicle that goes up and down Route 4, and it sounds like gunfire. And then I shouldn't say he, pardon me. And then this car continues on with this loud noise. I don't know if I'm the only one that hears it. It is definitely an issue. So that's why I asked the question, does this include traffic noise?
Mr. Bailey?
Yes, Council President. The ordinance covers pretty much all machinery, equipment, and things of that nature. Generally speaking, a car would be compliant just because of other state regulations. However, you could have theoretically a car that doesn't have a muffler, for example, which it could, I guess, reach a decibel level that would violate the ordinance. As a practical matter, to catch the person, if you will, would require, a certified reading from one of our certified officers from the health department or the PD with the machine to measure it. So from an enforcement standpoint, could be difficult, but it would apply if it was an excessive noise that did breach the standards set forth in the state's model ordinance.
Bill, let me ask you, if the car is running without a muffler or something, and a police officer happened to be stationed up that way, they could probably, I don't know what action, but maybe that would be their judgment, right? That
Yeah,
would
there might be other violations, by the way. If the car doesn't have a muffler, there may be other provisions of the state statute and motor vehicle code that are being violated. So there could be other ways to enforce it, yeah.
Okay. Ms. Hopper, did she leave?
Yeah, she's not here anymore.
She's not here. Is she back as an attendee?
Oh, here she is. All right. Should I allow her to talk again?
Yeah, I think so. She disappeared. Something must have happened. Because I don't know if she heard what Mr.
I'm saying allow to talk and
Bailey
it's
said.
not doing anything.
What happened?
I'm pressing it and it's not doing anything. I think it might be a computer glitch, maybe on her end.
I don't know. All right.
All right. Next person is
I'll
Ron.
reach out to Ms. Hopper.
Next person is Ron. Ron, you have to unmute yourself. Ron?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Very good, clearly. If you cannot, please let me know. Thank you for being here. This is my first time of doing Zoom. I'm going to do my best, okay?
Yep.
All right, there's a couple of issues. One was about apparently this noise ordinance. That was not the reason for my call, but I did address it with the police department. On my block on Conrad Road, there happens to be a sports style vehicle that starts up at 5:45 in the morning, sometimes 5:15 a.m. When it starts, it has to rev. It's got 4 exhaust pipes. I don't know what kind of car it is. I did talk to the owner. I am one of these people who will approach a person and attract their attention. If there's something that could be done about that, that would be wonderful, such as a suggestion, if a police officer could go there at that time when they see that sports car, and I'd be more than willing to at least get the plates on that, the tags, to at least ask the owner of that vehicle to kindly start that car up. So at least there can be an audio right at that moment so a police officer can understand. Apparently in the block, the residents seem to be intimidated by the owner. And that's where it lies right there. This is an ultimate quiet neighborhood that borders on Ivy Lane and Hudson Avenue. So it's not listening to traffic would be on Route 4. That's one issue. The second is that I had submitted a letter, email today to Mayor Wild, as well as to the Third Ward council member who is not on site right now.
She's on site. She's here.
Oh, she is? Oh, forgive me. I'm so sorry. I didn't even notice here. This is embarrassing on my end. It is pertaining to the landscapers. And I would like to work on the noise ordinance pertaining to that. But noise is one thing, as well as the exhaust coming from from this equipment. I would like to try to work with the city as a progressive city to work on the time when these licensed landscapers may be coming in, especially when it is a quiet neighborhood. So my recommendation happens to be in that email letter, and I'll address it right now so at least you can all hear it because you didn't all get it. Landscapers, except for snow removal, are to operate Monday through Friday between 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. On Saturdays, 9 to 4 p.m. or without operation for other religious observers. There are people who they observe Saturdays and they would like to have it at least a quieter time to be there of their weekends. Sundays should be without operation at all. And this is my beginning. I have about 4 steps added to this, and I'd like to work with the city to see what we can do about that, again, as a progressive city. And I'll leave it as this, because I like to work one step at a time.
Okay, sounds good, Ron. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks
you.
again for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yancy, you're on mute.
You're on mute. You're on mute. Thank you.
Mom started vacuuming, sorry. Mr. Manat is next.
Yes, how are you guys?
Good, how are you?
Everyone. You guys can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Doing good. My main concern is when are we when are we getting to the community center? Because that's my main focus here, because I hear a lot of stuff going on, but that's has been a long time resident and really caring about our community. We've been asking for this for a very, very long time, even when I was a little kid. And I really want to get down to when are we going to talk about this community center? Because it's very important.
Mr. Manat, we're going to have a meeting just focused on that late September, and that will be the only topic on the agenda that night. And I'll make sure that it's advertised for everybody to see, hear, and be invited to that meeting. But right now, we have to pass this ordinance or vote on an ordinance for the noise, okay? And you could call me offline if you want to as well. to discuss or, you know, whatever concerns or
Okay,
issues
so,
you have. Yep, you can do that. If you would like, call me or whatever, we can chat about
okay,
that. Whatever your thoughts are, I'm willing to listen to them and we can have that conversation. Okay?
okay, no problem. So tonight's not going to be about the community center, because that's
No.
what I thought tonight was supposed
Yeah,
to be.
no. But I'll let you know. I'll make sure you're there. You'll be there. Thank you.
No other members of the public have their hands raised.
If no one else wishes to be heard, I will now close this public hearing. Now I need to move this ordinance 2003 to be adopted. We'll have a council member who wants to move this.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Question?
Excuse me?
Question?
Yes, Councilman Hammond.
This is from Mr. Bailey. The ordinance is the model ordinance for the state, but we are supposed to, and I'm just mentioning this because I don't want it to get lost in the traffic. We're supposed to be introducing other items, you know, whether they're resolutions or changes to ordinances to cover you know, a whole range of noise situations, you know, such as the start of construction time, and as the member of the public, Ron, spoke up about contractors coming in and beginning their work and ending their workday. So, Bill, I just, you know, want to make sure, Mr. Bailey, just want to make sure that, you know, all of those items that we discussed, you know, are still being worked on, and we'll see those soon.
Yes, the thing, my office, we need direction in terms of, for example, construction activities, what exactly the hours are that you'd like to see in terms of hours of operation and dates of operation, and then we can prepare the amendments.
Okay, so Mr. Bailey, are you saying that you want to get these directives from the council?
Right.
Okay.
I'll send them to you.
Okay, thanks.
Charles, can I ask a question?
Excuse me?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey, right now, there's a process where a person can file a complaint against another resident for a breach of a noise ordinance. Does this new ordinance that come in change that process along? I know we're going to have some technology that can be used to gauge sound. You're going to have an investigative arm in the police that will be now enfranchised or authorized to prosecute. Does that change the process if one neighbor comes against another neighbor?
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. So this ordinance will create a vehicle by which the city can prosecute and have good forensic evidence and a case against an individual, but the process that is on the system right now still will maintain itself at the same time.
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything unconstitutional or arguably questionable about this ordinance?
I do not believe so, because again, it's the state's ordinance. And if any municipality wanted to deviate from it, they have to actually go back to the state for any change. So we're just adopting what the state has mandated for model noise ordinances. So I'd be shocked if it was deemed to not pass constitutional muster, since most municipalities in the state have it.
But if we were to add some
They presumably would have been challenged when it enacted this years ago.
if we were to add some of the activities that Mr. Hammer would like to add, and I'm a big proponent to add those too, would that change your opinion, or are we better off leaving it generic?
We have a separate ordinance that addresses hours of operation, for example, for construction activities. So that's actually not the noise ordinance, it's a separate ordinance.
Landscapers would have a separate ordinance. It wouldn't. So you don't want to tailor this in any way. You'd like to adopt it as best by the model ordinance for the state as possible.
Right, because as I indicated previously, if you deviate from the model, you can't adopt it. You have to go to the state and they need to approve the changes. That being said, we have a separate ordinance though. It's not a noise ordinance that determines hours of operation for construction activities, landscapers, even our regular businesses. There's all other ordinances that determine when they can be open and what the hours can be. So those can be changed independent of the noise ordinance.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilman Cohen.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Glenn.
Yes.
Councilman Hamer.
Yes.
Council President Cobb.
Yes. I declare the motion carried and this ordinance duly adopted, and that this ordinance will be published once by title only in the record. Next, public comment on agenda items. If anyone from the public wishes to speak about resolutions number 182 to 184, please state your name, address, and we're speaking only to those resolutions.
Have Ron again raised his hand.
Okay.
Ron, you have to unmute yourself.
No, this is not pertaining to those resolutions because I don't have them before me. It was primarily of the email that I had submitted to a number of representatives in our city. And I'll just rely on that and see where we can work with that, with any particular changes and what may be reformed or adopted in the future. And that's where I stand right now. I can be questioned. I can present a little bit more pertaining to that, but it's not according to the resolutions you're asking about.
Oh, Ron, yeah, but at this point, we're talking about just the resolutions there.
That's correct, and I don't know what they are. So I'll have to step out and I'm going to lower my hand, okay?
Thank you very much.
Very well, thank
Bill,
you.
Bill, did you have something? I saw you gesturing.
No.
Okay, okay. Yancy, you have anybody else that looks like they want to speak?
No. No other members of the public have their hands raised.
Okay. So we can.
Oh, wait, Mr. Manat.
Okay. Mr. Manat, you're up.
Can you please state the rest of the resolution so at least everyone's aware? Yes, can you please state the rest of the resolution so everyone's aware of what's going on?
It's three resolutions.
Yeah, can you state them since no one knows?
They should have, everybody should have an agenda. It was posted on the website, I think.
Well, everybody don't. Is that hard to do? Can we just say it for, really quickly?
Would you like me to read the titles of all
Yes,
three?
please read the titles.
Yes, please.
Please.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yep.
Resolution number 182, endorsing the submission of a 2020 Bergen County Community Development Block Grant by Women's Rights Information Center for COVID Community Development Funds. Resolution number 183, endorsing the submission of a 2020 Bergen County Community Development Block Grant by Vantage Health Systems Incorporated for office space preparation, prevention, and response to COVID-19. Resolution number 184, endorsing the submission of a 2020 Bergen County Community Development Block Grant by Infant Senior Sharing Project for preparation, prevention, and response to COVID-19.
And if I can ask Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
the block grant expert, and these grants, we basically are just approving these things, but we have nothing to do from a financial perspective with these things, right?
That's absolutely correct. It's just an endorsement, and actually it's a pass-through. These submissions go to the county for consideration, and those the community organizations that prepared the grant request will be reviewed, and a decision will be made as to if money is allocated, how much would be allocated to each of the organizations making the request.
Right. So basically, the city is just endorsing that these organizations actually exist.
Exist in
Okay.
Englewood, and there's no financial obligation on our
And we
behalf.
have no, right, and we have no financial obligation. Okay.
Thank you very much. That was very clear. Thank you.
Okay.
I just want
Thank you.
to appreciate it.
Okay. You're welcome. So Yancy, I guess we do a roll call to vote on these resolutions, 180, 182, 183, and 184.
Need a motion and second first.
We need a motion and a second.
So moved.
I'll second. Oh, okay.
Roll call.
Roll call, please. Thank you.
Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Glenn,
Yes.
Councilman Hamer,
Well, yes.
Council President Cobb.
I vote yes. Next, we have resolutions for discussion. Resolution honoring 2020 Englewood Rotary Club Community Award recipients. We will be recognizing the members there from a resolution perspective. I don't know off the top of my head, I know some of them, so rather than not name all of them, that's what we'll do. Resolution honoring recipients of the Flat Rock Brook Online Gala Community Leadership Award or Leader Award. That's Janet Sharma. The next one is renewal of liquor licenses for 2020 and 2021. And mandatory direct deposit for city employees. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Yancy, go ahead.
Wanted to comment on the liquor license renewals.
Please.
Normally they're done in June.
Yes.
This year with the governor's executive order, they were extended through the end of September, being that our last council meeting in September is September 15th. That's why they're being done at this time. We
Okay.
have most of them, and we're just closing out a few of them.
Any other members have any questions? Mayor, do you
Just
have any questions?
question.
Yes, Councilman Hamer.
Mr. Kaufman, would you explain to us the need for the mandatory direct deposit?
Yes. Due to a few issues, the postal service issues that we're having now, it's more cost effective, it's efficient for payroll, it saves time and money. It does exclude seasonal and temporary part-time. So like the lifeguards don't need to do that. They're working for a month or 2 months, or if you're temporary part-time, you don't have to do it. It's for full-time and for part-time that work, the whole year round. Permanent part-time.
Okay, so basically any of our permanent employees have to go through this process or required to do that.
Is there any harm or inconvenience to cause to any employee in this situation that you are aware of?
I'm not aware of any. If there is, it could. There are ways that we could. It would have to go through the council to get permission, or through the CFO to get permission for them not to use direct deposit. So there are ways around, but the resolution will state what the ways are. But there are ways to get around it if it's absolutely necessary.
Okay, so if somebody does, oh, sorry, Councilman Hamer, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just one last comment. If we're not voting on this tonight, we're just discussing this, and that will be on the resolution list for the 15th. But if you become aware of those type situations, we don't need to know the names, but I'd like to have the council made aware of any of those type situations that a special consideration has to be given to.
Right.
Okay.
And I was going to just say that, if they need special consideration, I know we have relationships at certain banks, and if people need an extra hand to establish a relationship individually, we should make it as easy as possible for them to do that.
Councilman Cobb, may I ask
Yes.
a question?
Yes.
It's no doubt, obvious, but I just wanted to state it that in order to get direct deposit, you have to have either a checking or a savings account, right? I mean, not otherwise, there's no place to deposit. So maybe that could be, maybe department heads could put the word out to their employees so this doesn't come as a surprise, and we could identify anyone who may have any issues with getting an account or doesn't want to have a bank account.
Yeah, I'm going to put a memo out. I just wanted to first discuss it with the council, put it on tonight's meeting agenda. And tomorrow I'm going to send out a memo to all the departments.
Yeah, we just got to make it work for the employees. And that's why I was saying if we have a relationship with a particular bank, then, you know, if somebody was willing to establish something that they didn't have, we can help them, point them in the right direction to make sure this is as least painful as possible or stressful as possible. We don't want to make that, we don't want to add to the stress already, okay?
Mr. Cobb, may I speak on the matter for a second?
Yes, you may.
The statute that directed the ability of governing bodies to make this mandatory for municipal employees was authorized by the legislature about 6 years ago. In the meantime, I am unaware of any municipality that has not implemented this to date. The standard method of dealing with employees who do not have a checking or savings account at a bank is to issue debit cards. And this is done through typically the primary bank that the municipality uses. And the debit cards are able to be used at no cost to the employee at any bank of their choosing, in order to be able to deal with employees who choose not to have bank accounts. In one town where I instituted it, we did it for approximately 450 employees. We even did it for seasonals, though Mr. Kaufman has indicated he won't be doing it for seasonals. It had no adverse consequences whatsoever. So I would agree that Mr. Kaufman ought to send out a notice of the intention to various departments so that all employees are aware of the intention and what the timing of it would be. But I can tell you that many, many, many municipalities have instituted this, and there have not been adverse consequences as the result of it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Greg.
I just have a question.
Yes, yes.
I had reached out to Mr. Bailey prior. We've seen this instituted either by resolution or by ordinance, and we were just trying to figure out what was the best method for Englewood to do this. I don't know, Bill, if you had a chance to look into this, just so we know for next meeting what we're doing.
I'll get you an answer tomorrow, because we've seen towns do it both ways. So I'm just checking. I'm going to check with our auditor as well, just in terms of which is the correct one. I've seen it by resolution and by ordinance.
Well, let's ask Greg. How have you seen it, Greg? Both ways as well?
I've seen it primarily done by resolution, but I have seen it done by ordinance. But I believe that resolution is a way that it can be done.
My gut is resolution is fine, because an ordinance is an act of legislation. It's a law, whereas resolutions are more administrative things, awarding contracts. So let me just verify, but I think my answer is going to be resolution, which makes it easier. It, takes an extra step out of it.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any more questions around this topic? If not, we'll move on to, we had no ordinance for discussion and items for discussion. Englewood Health Street banner proposal. Mr. Hamer, you want to tackle that one?
Well, I'll start the conversation. I'm going to ask Mr. Bailey to weigh in. We, as you are all aware, were approached by Englewood Health, and the request was to put up institute a banner program along what is being proposed as the medical mile. And basically it will fund the corridor between Dean and Grand / Ingle, and actually it's the Ingle side. So it would stop at Palisade Avenue, and the northern terminus, I believe, is Hamilton, but that could be corrected. Nonetheless, we referred it over to the sign and facade committee of the planning board for a review, and we got a response back that we need to look at this from an ordinance standpoint, because the the banners are not allowed inside of our ordinances. So at this point, I'd like to get Bill to weigh in and give us some guidance and start talking through.
Yeah, as Councilman Hamer indicated, under our current ordinance, the banners, which are kind of like pennants that would hang from you see them in other towns and stuff, or technically would be prohibited by our current ordinance, which, for example, does not allow such a quote banner as it's defined in the ordinance to be there for more than 30 days in a 12-month period, which is not really the goal, as I understand it, from what the medical mile and what have you. So really, there's two avenues to go. One is to amend the ordinance to address this situation and any similar ones that might come up, which would then make it variance free, and then they would kind of go through the normal protocol with a regular, sign type of thing. The other thing is they would have to, if we didn't do that, they would have to apply for a variance to the board, not the council, to get relief from that section of the ordinance. So those are really the two avenues that we have at the moment.
Okay. Mr. Hamer, anything else?
No, not really. I guess at this point, it's a discussion among the council members, and make a determination as to the direction that we're headed. My feeling, my personal feeling, is that we should give some thought to this, and that way we can control and limit, if they are going to be used around town, how it gets done, and move forward if that's the decision.
Mr. Bailey, could you give us some guidance on how we want to act, if we wanted to act on this? And since Councilwoman Rosenberg is not here, and she should be a part of this conversation, I guess at our next meeting, we should have something in place or something to act on this. Can we have something
Sure.
to see what direction we want to send this, or where we need to send this?
Yep. And just by way of example, typically where you do see an ordinance that permits these type of things, they're in, along main thoroughfares such as this.
Mm-hmm.
You don't generally see them permitted throughout the city, because you'll have them on every single street theoretically. So it's really, you try and focus them more in terms of areas in the downtown type of districts and things like that,
Right.
where there's different sign regulations anyway, as opposed to in residential, non-commercial settings.
Yeah.
We can look at other municipalities, for example, because I think Teaneck may have it, and I know Westwood has it just on the main drag. And then separate and apart from that, and I think Englewood Health will take this on, they have to deal with utility companies and things like that if they want to hang it from a utility pole. Beyond the city's jurisdiction.
Okay. I just want
Councilman, sorry.
to.
Councilman Cobb, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So is there, if we were to change the ordinance, how would we, and this is just, doesn't need an answer right now, but it's a question I have. What would prevent like every store on Palisade Avenue from having a banner? I mean, would the ordinance like stipulate somehow what the rationale is, or I'm just trying to like understand more fully the implications across our commercial district.
Yeah, you do have to, address why it would be in one area and not in another. And that's the harder part is it just across the city or not, or, are there safety concerns, traffic concerns, visibility concerns, for example, that have to be considered in doing this. So, yeah, it's not the easiest thing to do, but those are all factors that have to get considered. And sometimes we would try and get input from a planner, for example, who has done this,
Mhm.
who's more in tune with those type of things as opposed to just the consequences.
Yeah, I just,
Like that.
okay. Catherine, are you finished? Or
Yeah,
I want to
I
cut you
just,
off. Go ahead.
I just think there's there's a lot of complexity here. While, in our heads it may just be, oh, great, near the hospital, but there's going to be some people get yes and some people get no, and that's always a tricky situation.
So, Bill, I think what would be helpful is because we've had this, we started this discussion with Mr. Peterwitz, and then we've had, this has been on, I guess, at least 3 meetings. The next meeting, I would like to have it move in some direction if we, after council's has made a decision and understands what the decisions are, and what body is going to step next where we got to do it. So I think that we need to prepare it for whatever action we are hoping to take from this body.
Okay.
Comment, Mr.
Yes.
This is really for Mr. Bailey. He spoke about half of it. He mentioned the fact that PSC&G would have to, give their permission or whatever their approval process is to allow this to take place on utility poles. But in some cases, these are county roads, so the county is involved as well. I'm not sure if our ordinance would have to address or at least mention those provisions as well.
Yeah, they would likely, in this instance, have to get permission from the county as well. So, the county, for example, has a planning board also. So sometimes they have to, satisfy not only Englewood's requirements, but because it is a county road, the county's requirements.
Right, but if this needs a variance, then that's the Board of Adjustment.
Right, they'd still have to go to the county though, to Mr.
Right.
Hammers.
Right. So, I think we need to understand the steps that,
right,
after it leaves us, what it needs to take. And so we manage the expectations and also package it in a way so it goes through successfully. Okay. Any more comments on this topic? Okay, the next one is establishing an auxiliary police program. I believe we used to have one of these, and I think it'd be a good idea if we could get local residents the opportunity, if they want to become in a law enforcement field, to, receive proper training, proper guidance, and really an education on what it is to be a law enforcement official. So this is one of the areas where we could get some more of the local folks back in the game here in town. So this may be something we should consider, and we could have additional conversations around that. The other one is establishing an auxiliary firefighter program. And this is another focused on our local folks here and getting the training, getting preparation, and seeing if they want to be a firefighter, understanding what it takes, getting that knowledge, so they could be successful at that as well. So I think these are the things that the city should look to move on.
Can I make a comment?
Yep.
I think on these kind of matters, it's imperative that we have the chiefs of the relative departments in these conversations. I think that, ultimately they'd be the ones who would be responsible for these individuals and supervising them. I think they just need to be a part of this conversation. I personally, if I know in the past, we've had these conversations, and part of the problem, unfortunately, was that there just wasn't the level of interest of people to become a part of it. And that kind of stymied, the process of us trying to do so. But I do think that any conversation regarding those departments needs to include those chiefs, just where we're all on the same page and working together in collaboration with those departments if this is going to affect them.
Well, I agree. We'll have that conversation with the chiefs, but we have to put something out here first to start the conversation and see who's committed on this table here behind that. Because if you see people marching every Saturday and you see what they want to get, they want to talk about these types of jobs in this town. So we have to make it a way, or give them a way, or a pathway to getting or participating in these types of opportunities. And it starts here with us bringing that conversation to the chiefs. And I don't think it's going to be a problem, because there is interest, people who want to have those jobs. So we, if they're local, we should be supporting that 110%. If we got people that want those types of jobs.
I would just say I'm not opposed to it. I would just say that, part of the conversation to me is also, when you have the chiefs involved in that conversation, it's also a question of if there are people who are interested now, it's a question of also seeing from the chiefs what are the spectrum of activities that such a unit or units would be allowed to do under the governance of those bodies, and make sure that those are working in conjunction with what we're putting out there. Meaning, when we're saying we're going to have an auxiliary, for argument's sake, the police department. I mean, I know, or not an auxiliary police entity or unit. I've seen auxiliary police units in many different regions and municipalities, and they all look different. They all act differently. They all have different ways and responsibilities. I think one of the important things is to first see what the spectrum of activities that our police and fire departments would allow for auxiliary units to do. This way, when we present to potential volunteers, we know what we're offering. In theory, I think volunteerism is great. I think adding manpower and adding pathways to careers is great. I just think we just need to know more specifics about what it is that we're able to offer based on what our department heads are comfortable with.
Fair enough. But I'll just tell you this, and I'll close with this, is that we've had both of these, police and fire auxiliary, in the city of Englewood, anybody who knows that. And we got people who are at the senior levels in town who were part of that program, both programs. So we already have had this, and we've had great success at this. So these are things that would be reinstituted back in. So we can invite Chief Suffern and Chief Anderson in, and they could give you a little background on those things. But we had those before. That's how people get trained to get in there.
No, I know we've had those before, but we've had those before it's been quite some time. I mean, it's probably been 20 years since we've had them. And just policing has changed and fire has changed. To me, all I'm saying is, I conceptually I like any concept where we're bringing more people involved in helping out in our city and providing them, an opportunity to be involved in a positive fashion. I'm just saying policing has changed, fire has changed over the time since we've had this. It's been quite some time. I just think they need to be a part of the conversation in order for us to be productive. That's all I'm saying.
Well, we're not saying they're not going to be part of it. Obviously, they will be part of the conversation, but I think that people who want that, this is even giving them even more support to learn about these particular jobs and what the expectations are. It's almost like an apprenticeship. And so that we're preparing people, but we're investing in our people in the city of Englewood who want to do these jobs, so we're investing in their success. So this is what I want to do. Matter of fact, at the next meeting, I will bring Chief Suffern and Anderson in to talk about these conversations, but I wanted to bring this to the body first, and then we can move on that.
I mean, I'd be interested in hearing what our chiefs have to say and what they think can be productive, and take it from there.
Yeah, well, I already know what they're gonna say, so I'll
don't.
tell you that. But what I'm saying to you is that this is something good to develop within our town locally.
Councilman
Yes,
Cobb,
yes,
I'd like to ask a question about the
sure.
auxiliary programs.
Mhm.
So could you just briefly sketch out, like it was mentioned that it's a volunteer program. I'd like to just have a better understanding if it's like or use the word apprenticeship, which I think is probably a good word, but it's like a training program for folks interested in these careers, and they join a program that's unpaid, but they are given like volunteering at the hospital, if you will. I just want to kind of have a grasp of it, if you would.
It's more of a training. When you're an auxiliary, you volunteer so many hours and you do certain things under the supervision of whatever department head provides supervision for you. And they have a blueprint, but I wanted to make sure that as we try to have these conversations, first council has this, then we'll bring Chief Suffering and Chief Anderson in and let them have a conversation with us in terms of that. I don't know to the detail, but I know that we used to have these programs. But I would say that before we did anything, we had to have this conversation, which we're having today. And these guys will educate us on that. But I think it's an opportunity that will help people be successful in these fields, is if we get people that want to be in the law enforcement or firefighters locally, they will learn what it takes to do the job. They will understand the language, the lingo of the job. They will understand what it takes to do the job. They will understand what it takes to be a good police officer. And these are people who live amongst us right now and who have grown up in this community, and they want these opportunities. So it would be us making a commitment to our community here to get people in these jobs. And how the guidance and how it rolls out, that's where we would have to work with both chiefs on that. But these programs have been successful in Englewood prior. And
right.
They have gone away because of budgetary mumbo jumbo, as far as I'm concerned. And it really doesn't cost that much money to invest in some folks that want to do that. So I would say to you, Councilwoman Glenn, there's more to come on it. I just wanted to start this conversation. Obviously, this would be a conversation that probably, is part of the budget as we start to go into budget season or start to work on the budget. So I just wanted to start that, but by all means, I will invite these gentlemen in to have this discussion with us.
That'd be great. And I'd just also like to plant the seed, because we had talked about some time ago about having an outreach to students at Dwight Morrow,
right,
and really any, I guess, school in Englewood about these careers. And easier said than done, but I think we heard from a couple of people who attended programs out of state when they were in high school, and they were game changers for them. So
right.
it'd be great if we could have a piece of that as well. That may be too much to ask, but.
Well, if you remember a few weeks ago, where I put on there about the junior police academy and fire academy.
Yep.
So if it sparks their interest at that young age, which is the middle school age, right? McLeod, the middle school age, and then it continues on. And then if we could work out something with the high school, that's fantastic. But if not, they can see in the horizons that there are these programs there for them, and they should work towards that. So, I think that there are a number of additional steps we can add to this process and to help people move along. So I think it's more important to engage all the folks that would be involved in that, and more importantly, get our support behind it, to build a strong program and a pipeline that's here locally that we have resources here, and this is just a benefit for our community.
Mr. Cobb?
Sounds good.
Yes.
Hi, just as an adjunct, Catherine, to Ms. Glynn's question, I had the privilege of being an auxiliary police officer in New York for 10 years through high school, college, and part of law school. I think it's wise for us to have this because there are a lot of young men and women that do not go into the professional world and may seek a noble entrance into police and fire and so forth. They also serve primarily as eyes and ears in the community, and where we have a community with noise ordinances and all kinds of challenge, it's another resource for the police and the fire department to dispatch a personnel that are trained or will learn from officers. But it does come with a cost, whether it's uniforms and other stipends and insurance and all of that. We have to get our hand around it. But I applaud this so long as we are sensitive to doing this in other departments where an auxiliary would be useful too, perhaps in the public works and personnel, so that we encourage people beyond law enforcement and fire as well. But again, I think you know, it's a wonderful way to contribute back to Englewood. You'll find older people may want to join, and they have life's experience when they spend time with younger people, and you may get more engagement. I have to say, though, that it's no substitute for some of the other things. Mr. Minot and I met with the police and the deputy chief when it comes to maybe a civilian review board, having cameras on police officers and more engagement with police directly, not auxiliary in the schools and in the social experience. But it's certainly a step in trying to show the youth the steps into these noble professions and making sure that the community has greater resource, particularly in a pandemic with trees falling left and right and all the other things that we have. Having a cadre of people, I think, would be very useful. But we have to hear, like everyone said, from the chiefs, because the cost may be prohibitive in the end.
Okay.
Councilman Cobb.
Yes, Councilman Hamer.
Just want to make a comment.
Sure.
I think this is the absolute right way to start this conversation. And, you know, I'm very supportive of hearing more information and trying to find avenues for it working. And certainly the chiefs will have information to share and add to it. And the CFO will certainly have to be able to weigh in relative to whatever the costs are. But I think this is the right way to start this conversation. And I look forward to hearing what our professionals have to say about it.
Yep. I will make sure that we will bring them to the table as soon as possible, and we can continue this conversation. Bullet number 4, PSENG Direct Install Energy Program. Who's going to speak to that? That you, Mr. Volsi?
Yeah, I think I'll say a few words about it.
Okay.
I'll be brief. This is a program offered by PSENG to municipalities. What it does, it allows each municipality to make like energy efficient improvements to either their lighting, HVAC, boiler equipment. Essentially allows us to upgrade our systems. PSENG won't be doing the work directly. They have a third-party vendor that's going to come in, assess our system, and make the recommendations, etc. If it's approved, they'll do the work. I think in Bergen County, I think it's Wilden Energy Solutions. They're out of Edison. But the attractive thing about this is PSENG is going to take on 70% of the cost if everything's approved and the work is approved by both PSENG and the municipality. 70% of the cost will be absorbed by PSENG. The remaining 30% of the cost will be ours, but PSENG does allow us the option of financing it through our PSENG bill over 3 years at 0% interest rate. So that essentially is a plus for us. We are based on our facilities and the age of our facilities, we are a prime target for a program such as this. It's fairly easy to start the program. There's an access agreement that has to be filled and signed by a municipal rep for each of the facilities that we would want them to take a look at. That's submitted to PSCNG. Also, PSCNG would require a few months of our bills for each facility because internally they would want to compare what we're currently paying to what the new system could potentially save us. The older the system and the more savings we can actually gain from a new system, makes it more attractive for PSCNG to actually help us along with this. The bad thing about it is there's a deadline to this. Municipalities have to be enrolled by the end of this month. And that includes resolutions or anything that has to be in place for this program to take place. So that's why Jules and I thought it was important to get it in front of the governing body tonight, just to get the ball rolling on this program.
So, Mr. Volsi, you know we got one more meeting this month, right?
Yes, I do.
So, and if you're saying that the deadline is at the end of the month, whatever we got to do to tie this thing up for you, we got to make sure we have everything buttoned up so we can get this thing done, right?
Yep, we met with we actually spoke with the rep last week, so we're trying to spin this around as quickly as we can.
Okay, all right. I'm sure Jewel will stay on top of it, I know. We just want to make sure it's there.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Volsi? And at some point, you're going to come up with the 30%, right? We're going to know what that number is?
Yes, once it's assessed and the vendor gives everything to PSCNG actually lets us know up front how much the total cost is going to be, et cetera. Then it will be up to us to decide whether or not we want to go ahead with it or not. And if we do, they'll occur 70% of it. They're willing to take it on.
Okay, all right. Okay, Yancy, I think we're going to move on to the public session.
Mr. Cobb?
Hold on. Yes, Mr. Hamer.
Just a comment, not a question. Actually, there is a question involved in it. At our last meeting, I asked if we could get an item for consideration added to the agenda, and I didn't ask for this meeting because we only had one response to the question or to the comment. I wanted to get consideration given to some form or fashion of some sort of display of Englewood Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
And that I've heard one response, and that was at the last meeting. Actually, one of the residents, stated that there should be some sort of painting in front of the police department relative to that. But I want to formalize a process to get community input, so we could look at how we could make a fitting tribute as a city to this timely movement.
So we put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
Yes.
And then we can have the community weigh in and provide ideas, thoughts, and comments, right?
Correct.
Okay, we got it. I see Yancey's making a note of it there. So we will make sure that it's on the agenda for our next meeting. So we'll tell people that everybody who's listening, our next meeting is when's our next meeting? The 14th? 15th?
15th.
15th. So it'll be on our 15th agenda. All right.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hamer. Now, I'll get back to, we're going to open this up to the public session. The name, address, and we have 2 minutes to speak. Yancy, you can read them their rights on what they have to do.
Everybody, if anyone's interested, bottom of the screen, please just click to raise your hand. And I will call on you and allow you to speak. Once you're done speaking, you will be muted again. Okay, everyone is going into queue as they raise their hand. First one is Mr. Minot.
Yes,
Please make sure you unmute yourself.
Mr. Minot, you're up. You're up.
Oh, how's everyone again?
Good.
Yes, just to follow up on that, because I've been hearing a lot of feedback from the community about that, and I actually spoke to the mayor about that, about a mural or something about Black Lives Matter, and I think it would be a great idea if we had something going down Palisades Avenue. I think that as a community, we should come together, you know, all together, no matter your background or whatever, everyone together. And I think, you know, just to show the world and just to show, you know, everyone, you know, that we're all in this together. And, you know, no matter what our background, it's about right and wrong. And I know everyone on this board, and I know everyone around the world, you know, we can separate, you know, what's going on from just being genuine and just being human beings and coming together and just showing our community that we're all here together and we're working together for the best for everyone, you know, all together as humans. And I think a nice Black Lives Matter down Palisades Ave would be a huge statement for our community, and not just for us, for everyone else around us.
Yep, I agree. So on the 15th, Mr. Minot, if you can make it, please be there so you can voice your opinion. We're gonna, you know, have some time to really talk about this thing, okay, on that meeting.
Great, thank you guys so much. I'll definitely be there. I'm gonna make sure whatever I gotta do, I'll make sure I'll be at that meeting.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay, next is Diane Jensen. Diane, unmute, please. Thank you.
Diane Jansen, 589 Ridgeland Terrace. I just wanted to say thank you so much for putting on the auxiliary police as well as the auxiliary fire on the agenda and moving forward on that. What a great pathway. And when I was in college, I had a similar pathway for hospital administration, and I was able to intern while I was going to college at a major hospital, and that made my decision that that would be a career that I would explore. And I like how the mayor also added that not just fire and police, but maybe we start there and move into other areas as well, so that people understand what they can do in life and what really matters to them, where their heart is. Other than that, I thank you again also for putting on the community center later on the fall agenda, so that we could discuss that with Liberty School. We'll be sure to attend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Sorry, it's going slow. Okay, next is Peter Jansen. Peter, you have to unmute.
Yes, Pete Jansen, 589 Ridgeland Terrace. Last council meeting, I went through some ideas for a rough estimate for a community center. Now since we're having this meeting later in September, now's a good time to start thinking of ideas of what people might want, get people excited, get people involved in the ideas, and make sure that we meet what the community needs. So I kind of have a couple things to talk about that might help us get there. I read an article from 8 or 9 years ago about turning Liberty School into a community center for 13.7 million. Maybe in today's dollars, it's around 15 million. That would be $195 per household, average taxes per year. If we look at other options, why do we have to just have a building with space, a gym, maybe a music, maybe some art studios? Maybe we should start thinking about how can we drive businesses and restaurants by having maybe a sports venue here. We already have a hockey rink. Maybe we need an indoor pool. What's the price for that? It's about $2.5 million for a mid-range indoor Olympic-sized pool with bleachers and a scoreboard. Maybe we need an indoor track. That might be $4 to $5 million. Maybe we enclose some of our tennis courts. We can do 2 of our courts for about $750K. We can enclose them. That would allow us to be able to have sports year-round. We could do intramural meets. We could do competitions. It would drive businesses and sports teams to come and rent our space and do competitions, and it would all overflow into our business district. So that's something to think about. What else can we do to help drive what we're trying to get to after we get through this COVID thing? And that is get our businesses back online, get our restaurants going, and also meet the needs of our community and our kids. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pete.
Okay, next is Amy Bullock. Okay, Amy, unmute yourself.
Amy Bullock, Howland Avenue, Englewood. I'd like to request when the two chiefs come to talk about the auxiliary police and the auxiliary fire, if we could also have information on how that would impact the city's insurance and liability costs and things like that, along with their presentations. I totally support having auxiliary police and fire. I think it's a great segue into those careers for those children who want to go that route. I also think it helps build community relationships. But I want us to be cognizant of any liability that we may incur because of it, because we are constantly in some form of litigation. And it's a little frustrating when my tax dollars are constantly going to attorneys instead of being reinvested into the community. I do believe that we should paint Black Lives Matter murals somewhere in Englewood. I support doing it in front of the police department, but that's semantics. The important thing is that we do something. So I will also be on the meeting on the 15th. And I would also ask that the council consider the suggestion that Pete Jansen made in regards to how we might be able to expand our sports offerings or sports facilities here in Englewood. The ice rink is a great example of how that has brought people into our community who shop at our stores and eat at our restaurants when they come to Englewood for ice hockey games. And things like track meets and swim meets bring large amounts of people, and these are long events. So people are here for hours. So it's definitely something worth exploring. That's it. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Yancy, who's next?
Next is Reverend Harper.
Unmute. Greetings again. Thank you for taking my call. Last week, Hackensack's Mount Olive Baptist Church, there was a webinar on voting, the mail-in voting in the 2020 election. It was excellent. It was thorough. It was academically on target. It was presented by the county clerk. I think it would be wise for us to look into re-presenting that webinar or making it available for all the citizenry in Englewood. It was very, very informative. So I highly suggest that. And the county clerk said he's willing to make sure everybody gets the information correctly. That was one thing. in terms of the Black Lives Matter, I would personally like to see it, if we have it, at the crossroads of Palisades Avenue and Van Brunt Streets, as opposed to in front of the police department. That takes off a intimation of police. It's for everybody. It's not just a social justice issue with the police. It's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. It's beyond policing. So I suggest we put it on Palisade Avenue between the railroad tracks. And finally, in this new day of Zoom meetings, which we are all adjusting to, including my computer, thank you, Spectrum, which keeps shutting off, common sense and common courtesy dictates that all elected and paid officials present themselves with audio as well as a portrait video for the entirety of all public meetings. It is an insult to me as a taxpayer when all of our elected and paid officials are not visible. Thank you very much for taking my comments.
Thank you, Reverend Hopper.
Okay, next is Nathan Smalls.
Good evening. If everyone can hear me, my name is Nathan Smalls. I live at 1 William Street in Englewood, New Jersey. Just a couple of things in the 2 minutes. Listening to the end this evening, absolutely excited to hear about the potential of auxiliary fire and police. I think I do even remember when Englewood had that. I think it's great for the community. So I hope we don't get bogged down in things. And I think this is the perfect climate and time to implement those. I just think that the council needs the will to get past it. And I think this would be an excellent first step to do that. Great programs for both of those, and look forward to being able to hear more. Secondly, I know DPW is doing a great job. You know, we've acknowledged them pre-COVID and the hard work that they have in trees, and living right off of Palisades Avenue myself, within less than 600 feet. I walk into trash and garbage on a daily basis, along with my 5-mile walk around the city, which I do 5-6 days a week. I travel through every ward every day. And I see some of the things that city we could be doing better. The question is, there are some housing that are on Palisades Avenue. I don't know if they have proper trash disposal or not, but what I'm finding out is there's garbage left out, household garbage left out on the main street in front of many businesses, and I'm finding some of them are not the businesses. What is disturbing is to find household items, diabetic supplies in some of those trash that then, you know, rodents, ducks, birds tear apart, and then you find the recycled diabetic supplies. And I think that's a hazard. With DPW, is that their responsibility? Just trying to find out how we can offer something, or landlords be required to find a disposable unit for tenants if they don't. So just wondering, is there anything that can be done to just make downtown a little bit cleaner? I love to eat there every day, and you have bugs and flies when you're out in front of your restaurant trying to enjoy your food, and I see this daily. So anything or suggestions could help. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. We'll look into that, Nathan.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes.
Next is Alida Fazel.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. My
Aye.
question, I'm just asking again, what is the status of the ballot box in Englewood? Where are we with that? Having a ballot box?
Mr. Hamer, you want to answer that? I know you were looking into that.
There is, the request has been made to the county, and they have come back with some information, but it hasn't been finalized yet. And they will be communicating that information through the city clerk once it is finalized. So, you know, I'm very optimistic, but we're just waiting for the final word from them at this point, from the Board of Elections.
Thank you, Councilman.
Quite well.
Thank you.
And just, Council President, just so everyone else is aware, the request was to have a ballot box, you know, designated inside of Englewood so that all of our residents can get to, and if it's located at City Hall, which would be ideal, can get to City Hall to drop off the ballots that are being mailed out to every resident. And it's a safer way to get your ballot back into the system and have it counted. So that's what the question was relative to the ballot box.
Okay. Yancy.
Next is Margaret Woodward. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I also would like to lend my support for the academies. I think it's a great idea. I look forward to hearing more about it. I'm so glad Nathan brought up the point about the cleanliness of our city. I also find that for a city that's definitely trying to attract new businesses, we are not putting our best foot forward. And as Englewood Hospital and some of these other businesses, trash cans with maybe their name on it might be a good way to go, but we definitely need, it looks as though people don't take pride in picking up. The other thing for France, since you're going to be meeting with PSE&G, I have a question. Is it possible to have solar panels at bus stops? Because there are bus stops that are very dark. I have a neighbor, I'm at 185 East Palisade Avenue. I had a neighbor who would walk downtown rather than across the street because she had to be out at 5 in the morning and she didn't feel comfortable being in the dark on Palisade Avenue. And that could be cost efficient, and it could be a great service for people and a safety factor as well. And so I look forward to the things that are meeting coming up to talk about Black Lives Matter as well. And I think I'm at my 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Margaret.
And there's nobody else with their hand raised.
Okay. So we're gonna close the public session. And Mr. Bailey, I'm gonna ask you to read us into the closed session.
Yes, sir. Be it resolved by the governing body of the city of Englewood that a meeting closed session to discuss matters including litigation and matters within the attorney-client privilege, and be it further resolved that the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public upon taking final action thereon, provided it does not constitute an undue invasion of privacy or violate the attorney-client privilege. And be it further resolved that although the council will return to open session at the conclusion of the closed session, it is not envisioned that it will take any formal action at that time.
So we need a motion and a second to go into close?
So moved.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so it turns out there is no breakout room in webinar version. So I just emailed everybody a meeting invite. So we're going to switch to a meeting. So everyone please
Leave this one and
leave this one and join the other one. Hopefully it works.
Oh, just leave, just hit leave?
Yes.
Good night.
Good night, Franz.